some other shit I was thinking about. Like after watching the news and all that, and me being into history, knowing about the past, right? It's just like, and knowing that that saying, history repeats itself. History repeats itself because people don't change. And why don't people change? Because every time every kid, every newborn, basically is like a sponge, a clean sponge, and then the influences of society and all that shit corrupts them. You know what I mean? It dirties that sponge. The parents, that's the first, that's the first group that influence that kid, that dirties that sponge, their brain. You know, and I came to kind of realize that history repeats itself because people don't change. But yeah, it's new kids, new generation. But what the thing is, it's it's like tradition, right? Because everything we know as people is because our parents taught us that. You know, so all the bad habits of the past, it gets passed down to the kids, and those habits come back. It basically comes back again, right? That's that whole trickle down, trickle down. So the same shit will continue to happen. Your father was stupid. He believed 1 plus 1 equals 11. He taught you that shit. So now you grew up in the world going around saying 1 plus 1 equals 11, and then you have kids. Your kids, you teach them the same shit, and they walk around the world saying 1 plus 1 is 11. So all the bad habits, all the negative comments, all the racism shit, all that shit is because some parent, older generation told the new generation that, I mean, taught the new generation that shit. So history repeats itself because of that tradition, because of tradition being passed down, bad habits being passed down to the kids, and they end up thinking the same way that the parents who are fucked up, right? They end up being just like that person, and history repeats itself. And then you have the real influences, the way things are structured, the system, the way that there's a system set up, and it affects people like the same way. History repeats itself because of tradition, because of how people think. They pass that shit down to their kids, to their offsprings, and the kids end up, you know, thinking the same way and acting the same way, and therefore that shit continues to happen over and over, over and over. People fuck people over because of money. People fuck people over because of other shit. Girls is always the downfall for shit. People end up being drug addicts. Why? Because they've seen it on TV. Because their family members do it. You know what I mean? It's all these influences. They see it, they copy it, they end up doing it, and then you have the new person, the new replacement, right? History repeats itself, just like nature kind of repeats itself, right? You have fall, you go through spring, all this da da da, come back right back to fall. It's a cycle. It keeps going. It keeps going. It keeps going. And that's why, that to me is why history like repeats itself. That's why bad things happen this generation. They happen the next generation. They happen the generation after that. Because people are aware of stuff, and sometimes you have these people with this bad mentality, people who's not really mentally there. They get a hold of certain news, and that shit affects them. Like you had that cop that they shot, that dude shot. They said he had mental problems, and after basically watching the news and hearing about ISIS, he feels like, oh, I relate to them. Oh, I'm ISIS now. Oh, let me go shoot a cop. Right? You have people with who's mentally not there, and then they hear these news, they hear these negative things, and since they're not all there in the head, they process that the wrong way, and they end up killing somebody. And then you have other people who's doing it for attention, who saw the thing done and saw, hey, This crazy person shot somebody, and he's on the news now. Hey, if I go shoot somebody, I might be known. And he does that, and then there's another kid watching that. It's like, oh wow, nobody ever listens to me, and he did it, and look at him, he's famous. And they don't know, like, there's a bunch of different kind of being famous. That's not something to glorify, to have to die in the future, like, but you're known? That shit crazy.